Hey guys. So, first of all, if you hear some really weird noises in the background, it's just really windy outside today, so the windows are making quite a bit of noise, so I apologize in advance. So, a lot of you have been talking about this subject these past 2 days. So, here's my opinion on this because I feel like it's very controversial and I thought I should give my opinion because why not? Also, a more balanced opinion on this whole thing. So, as you know by now, Harry and Meghan have announced that they have baptized Lilibeth and that from now on, both Lilibeth and Archie are going to be titled Prince and Princess. And there's been a lot of backlash against Charles for this. And now here's the thing. So, Charles, as soon as he became king, all of his grandchildren were entitled at that point to use the title Prince and Princess in accordance to the letters patent in accordance to George V letters patent of 1917. And though technically he could issue new letters patent to change this, I never thought it was going to do so anyway. And honestly, I don't think that would have been a good idea. And here's why. So, if you remember correctly, Harry and Meghan did an interview with Oprah, and Meghan tried to bamboozle us by saying that Archie was not given a title because of his skin color. And while we know that the accusations were false, this was actually one of the 17 proven lies Meghan told during this interview. If Charles were to remove their right to actually have the titles, you can be sure Harry and Meghan would utilize that and say, see, we told you the royal family is racist. They have stripped our kids from their birthright. And if those two were capable of falsely accusing the royal family of racism, they sure would do it again.
First member of color in this family not being titled in the same way that other grandchildren would be.
Aha! We have hit the nail on the head. The problem for Meghan was that she could not comprehend the fact that William's children were allowed to have their princess and prince titles and not her children. Now, if she was to say that the rules of the institution are a bit ridiculous and unfair, considering this is a family, I could actually understand that, and I actually agree. Having one set of grandchildren having a right and not the others, yes, by definition, monarchies are not fair. I agree with that 100%. The problem is she tried to lie and say that they were entitled to the titles, but were refused the titles because of their color.
It's Archie now. And that was when they were saying they didn't want him to be a prince or princess, not knowing what the gender would be, which would be different from protocol. Can you just tell them the truth? Can you say to the world, you're not giving him a title and we want to keep him safe, and that if he's not a prince, then it's not part of the tradition? Just tell people and then they'll understand.
So she tried to lie to us and tell us that the royal family was going against protocol and against the tradition by not giving Archie a prince title. Because he was actually given a title, the title of Earl of Dumbarton, and Meghan was apparently furious about that because she thought that Earl of Dumbarton sounded like dumb, and so she was afraid that Archie would get bullied because of that title. But they tried to make it seem like they wanted him to be a normal person without a title at all.
Now. And that was when they were saying they didn't want him to be a prince or princess, not knowing what the gender would be, which would be different from protocol.
Can you just tell them the truth? Can you say to the world, you're not giving him a title and we want to keep him safe, and that if he's not a prince, then it's not part of the tradition? Just tell people and then they'll understand. In those months when I was pregnant, all around this same time, so we had in tandem the conversation of he won't be given security, he's not going to be given a title, and also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
So this is why at the time I was so suspicious about this allegation, because I already knew at the time that she was lying about the titles as well as some other things. But then the way she is explaining this is just so bizarre. The sentence doesn't even make sense. We were having in tandem conversations about security, the title, but then also conversations and concerns about the skin color. Like, what does that even mean? So she made it seem like it was all about race, but really the children were just not entitled to have the prince and princess titles yet. Now, what does the letter patent actually say? So as you know, by now this letter patent was issued by George V in 1917, and it states that the children of any sovereign and the children of the sons of any such sovereign and the eldest living son of the eldest son of the Prince of Wales shall have and at all times hold and enjoy the styled title or attribute of Royal Highness with their titular dignity of Prince or Princess. So given this information, as soon as King Charles became king, Archie and Lily were entitled and are entitled to be called Prince and Princess. And if Charles were to refuse them the titles, that would cause a lot of backlash, not only because of the potential racist accusations, but also that would make Charles look bad and seem petty, as the children have nothing to do with what their parents are doing right now to the royal family. So that would seem like unfair punishment. Now, you might say, hold up. Why were Charlotte and Louis already prince and princess, given the fact that they would normally have to wait until the queen's death also? And that's because back in December of 2012, the Queen issued new letters patent to make all children of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, now Prince and Princess of Wales, HRHs at birth. In my opinion, the Queen did this in order to put all of the brothers and sisters in an equal position and avoid rivalries between siblings, which is a pattern we have seen throughout history. Now, letters patents are not something that you do willy-nilly, and the Queen knew that Harry was probably going to have children at some point. So had the Queen wanted Harry's children to be prince and princesses at birth, she would have included them in the letters patent she issued at that time. But she did not. And that was back in 2012, so years before Harry met Meghan. I know that a lot of people were hoping that the Queen or Prince Charles would have followed Queen Margaret of Denmark's footsteps and stripped Harry's children of their right to have the titles altogether. But I really think that if the Queen had planned to do so, she would have done so when she was still alive to avoid putting her son in such a tough position. Her being the grandmother, but obviously King Charles is the father, so it would be a lot more tough for him to do so. And I think that despite of everything, he still loves his son, and he probably loves his grandchildren, and he probably doesn't want to be unfair to them because they ultimately have nothing to do with this. And it must be very sad for him not to be able to spend time with his grandchildren. After all, he's getting old, and this is one of the things that I really don't understand. And I think Meghan and Harry are being very cruel. They are depriving grandparents of seeing their grandchildren because of some petty disputes they have. And that is unfair to the grandparents and to the grandchildren, honestly. So in conclusion, I never expected King Charles to strip the kids of their titles. Now, he might strip Harry and Meghan of their titles. That's something I would more likely see him doing because, like I said, the kids have nothing to do with this. So if you have to punish someone, it would be Harry and Meghan. Now, I don't know if he is ever going to have the courage to do that. But William, on the other hand, is reportedly really furious at his brother, much more than Charles. If I were Harry, I would try to rebuild the bridges with William, although I don't know if that is still possible at this point, because once William becomes king and Charles is getting old, I am sure that if they keep this up, William will probably end up taking action. Also, in regards to the children's titles, it doesn't really make sense for Harry and Meghan to have accepted the titles because the children will probably never use them. The USA is a republic, so it doesn't recognize titles, so they are useless there. And the chances of them becoming working royals are really thin. They never lived in the UK and they are very far down the succession order, so not to mention it makes them look bad as it seems very hypocritical of them to give your children titles from an institution you regard as evil. Although Harry did make a 180 recently again by saying he still believes in monarchy, so...
You still believe in the monarchy?
Yes. I don't.
Also, Harry complained so much about being trapped in the institution and about the level of scrutiny attached to a title and a position you did not choose. So why make his children bear the same burden?